Hey everyone, I'm Lou,
And I'm Megan,
your host of the Builder Upper Show.
a podcast where we talk about everything in construction and trades. I would like to welcome our guest, Kaitlin Frank from eMOD. Hi, Kaitlin. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Good. So, what's your story, Kaitlin? What's the juicy news behind who Kaitlin is and where did eMOD come from?
Oh gosh, where to start? So I'm Kaitlin Frank. I'm one of our co-founders, and previously, before jumping into tech, I started out as a superintendent. And so I started out in Boston, made my way across the country to San Francisco, ran work for 10 years, and just essentially realized at one point that no matter how safety focused a company was and how ingrained it was in their culture, it never made its way down to the field, especially in the technology side of things. Everything was really focused on foreman and superintendent level, but that's not who's getting hurt. And
Right.
so for me, being the daughter of a contractor, I always wanted to know that my dad was going to come home safe at the end of the day. And I always wanted to send all of my crew members home at the end of the day. So what started out as me trying to digitize a few documents turned into an entire safety platform, which turned into me leaving the field and helping run eMOD.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So that is essentially then what inspired you um to run with this is from just your childhood and wanting to have a safe environment for everybody within your company and then just your father as well.
I mean, that was definitely part of it. The other part of it is, as a superintendent, you are legally liable for everyone who steps foot on your job site.
That is
And the policies and the procedures that are typically put in place are very difficult to deploy as a superintendent, especially when you're running multiple jobs. So
Yeah.
at one point, I was running 3 small jobs in San Francisco. No one was supposed to start work until I had reviewed and accepted and signed off on what we call pre-task plans. They're called pre-task plans or JHAs and JSAs. They have a million names in the industry, but
Right.
pre-task. So before you do your task, they're supposed to get signed off on. Well, 3 jobs, let's say you had 5 to 6 crews working on each job, that's 15 crews. I'm one person. How am I supposed to actually do all that? So while the programs were put in place to be very effective, actually deploying them in the field was impossible because you can't be in 3 places at once.
Right.
And so there were 3 small jobs, but what happens when you have one really big job? It's the same issue.
Right.
And so I felt very responsible for everyone's safety. And that's really what drove me to help found eMOD, because I took safety very personally.
I love that. So what initially got you into the construction industry then?
So following my dad's footsteps,
Okay.
I grew up on job sites. I'm on a job
Yeah.
site right now. But I grew up around construction. I knew I wanted to be in the industry. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be in the industry. So my undergrad's actually in architecture. I thought, I want to be part of the industry, but I thought I wanted to be on the design side. And I very quickly realized that it wasn't for me.
Right.
I learned that I was very much a hands-on learner. So being out in the field was how I was going to figure out how to build. And so I went right into construction. I got a master's in construction. Went right out into the field as an assistant superintendent field engineer right out of school and just kind of fell in love with problem solving.
Yeah.
There's so many great conversations that can be had out in the field. And I just fell in love with the people and the contractors themselves. I don't know. There's something special about the industry.
I would have to agree completely. There's just something about this specific industry that it truly is special. I love that. I love that. What would you say are some of the most common challenges right now that owners are facing? And then is there a specific way that you're able to help them overcome this?
I think a lot of construction owners are facing the technology fatigue when it
Mhm.
comes to deploying safety out in the field, or actually any technology out in the field. Even in the office at this point,
Yeah.
Well, during the pandemic, there was such an influx of technology that was required in order to maintain construction that it's a silver lining. It's great because we kind of forced the field to adopt technology when they were pushing back before. We didn't have an option, but there's also a fatigue to it.
Yeah.
And so trying to identify, how do you deploy a safety program? What does that actually look like for your team? How do you know if people are actually following your program? I think a lot of owners, they have a program, they've written a program, they've put a lot of good steps in place, but they have no visibility to, is it actually being utilized and are people actually using it?
Right. No, that's great. That makes a lot of sense too. I guess to piggyback off of that, how are you encouraging um contractors to embrace this technology in the industry?
Yeah, so with eMOD, we're trying to put the technology in the hands of those who are in harm's way.
Right.
And so the way that we've designed it is to be very simple, very easy to use. And so, for example, we have an integration with Procore. If you complete a pre-task plan in eMOD, we automatically take that data from your pre-task plan and do your daily log for you. So we're trying to take, we don't want everyone to have to do all these duplicate entries and make all this extra work. We're trying to make it really simple. So for the field, hey, I'm asking you to do something new, but in return, I'm going to take something else away. So you don't have to do two things. It's also really helping companies identify where they have gaps, where they may not see it. So typically you see a lot of companies that have multiple platforms or multiple components that are very disjointed and don't talk to each other, where in eMOD, if you sign off on a pre-task plan today, I also can see if you've completed your orientation. Things tie together and speak to one another. So we're trying to remove that burden and kind of that roadblock for people, making it really easy for them.
Okay. And then no, that's a really good answer. Is there something today that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, yeah. How long do we have?
Uh, I mean, as long as you need.
Not everyone is ready for change.
Yes.
And I think going into this, I was like, of course, people want to know where they have problems with their safety program, or they want to make it better. I think the most shocking thing is how much data we can collect, and people don't want that much data.
Mm,
Um, I think they're scared of the data. They don't know what to do with the data, and if they have the data, what does it mean that they have to act on it? And
right.
in my head, coming into this, I always figured out like the more data, the better. The more you can improve and pivot, and there is a point of too much. And I wish I had really understood that coming into this, because I just think we would have started out at a different spot, and not started out at a different spot. I think we would have focused on different things at different times to
Yeah.
help companies. But it's really helped us out in kind of the customer service and the onboarding process of, okay,
Yeah.
let's start with this. This is where we're going to start. This is step 1, step 2, step 3, so we don't overload people with data.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sometimes we can definitely overcomplicate things as we try to simplify the matter. So, that's very wise. Is there somewhere that people can find you to get started then, or where would they look to if they're trying to look up something to assist them in this area?
To find me, of
Mhm.
course, you can find us at emodsafety.com.
Okay.
And you can always find us on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then before we wrap up, one last question. Is there anything that you would like to tell entrepreneurs who do want to join the construction industry?
Find something you're passionate about, um, and live it. I think the one thing that really differentiates eMOD is our entire team comes from construction.
Yeah.
You know, designing a software for the field doesn't happen behind a desk. A lot of it has to happen from, standing on a job site at 5 a.m. when you have 50 to 200 guys trying to enter a job site, and you have deliveries and you have all these things happening around you.
Yeah.
Having all of that and then realizing someone needs to learn something new. at that moment? How simple is it?
Yeah.
Just really putting yourself in the end user's shoes, whether it be for the field or for the office. I think you really have to kind of live that moment to understand how to deploy it.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much, Kaitlin, for being a guest on the show. And I would like to encourage everybody to like, subscribe, and comment and share the Builder Upper Show with anyone in the industry. And we will see you next time.
If you're a construction contractor and would like to appear as a guest on our podcast, write us an email. It's lou@lumberfy.com.